Hello and welcome to this week's edition of In the Zone. We're going to be talking about some MLB baseball, throw it over to some NFL, and then finish up with some fantasy football, studs and duds, even talk about Monday Night Football. So stay tuned. You're about to get in the zone. Hello and welcome back to In the Zone. I'm your host, Logan Kopp, and with me are my comrades, Andrew Placera and Mark Thompson. How you doing, fellas?
Hey, how you doing today, Logan?
Not too bad, Logan.
I'm doing well. So we're going to be talking about some MLB baseball to start it off. So as you know, the Baltimore Orioles are in first place in the AL East and seem to be cruising towards a playoff berth. Last Friday, the first baseman, Chris Davis, was suspended 25 games for the use of Adderall, meaning that he will miss at least the O's first playoff series. Are the O's a legitimate playoff threat, and will the loss of Chris Davis impact them? Mark?
I mean, honestly, they are a legit playoff threat, but this really hurts them. I mean, 25 games. If they were to make it deep in the playoffs, he wouldn't be back until the ALCS. So this really hurts. I mean, his numbers have been low this year. I mean, he's still hitting great homers. He's hit 26 homers, 72 RBIs, but he's hitting below 200, and that's not really that great. He also is struggling against left-handed pitchers, so this is really a tough blow for them. And since 2012, he's had the most homers with 112 home runs, so this is really a tough for him.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Mark. I feel like the O's definitely depend on their star slugger. Yeah, like you said, he batted to 196, and he's pretty much out there hitting for home runs, and that's the type of style that the Baltimore Orioles really reflect on their whole franchise, and they specify to their players. I feel like they have a legitimate shot without Davis because of the roster depth. I feel like they have people that can fill in the slot, fill in the positions, and able to really control the game no matter who's in the game.
So, but just moving just down the Beltway then to the Washington Nationals, the Nats have the best record in the NL at 85-63. They're in 8th in the MLB in batting and 2nd in pitching. Do the Nats have the poise and talent to go deep in the playoffs? And will the Nationals be able to take care of business and reach the World Series? Andrew, what do you think?
Well, I feel like to really pinpoint the Nationals, they have excellent chemistry. The roster seems to be very balanced. And the defense is by far, something that's above average. So I think with all that concluded, you've seen teams fold, though, that have dominated. I don't mean to bring basketball into this situation, but you've seen teams that have dominated through the regular season and have folded like the Miami Heat. So you never know what you're going to really go up against. And I think the Nationals do have a legitimate chance, but you never know.
Very good point.
You know, honestly, in baseball, it's all about who's hot. I mean, if you're coming into the playoffs hot, most likely you might end up taking it all the way and winning the World Series. I mean, they look really good. I mean, Bryce Harper's out there doing his thing, hitting like always. I like, what's his name? I completely forgot his name.
Steven Strasburg?
Yes, thank you for helping me. Steven Strasburg. He's been lights out in years past. Right now, his record's sitting at 11-11, so he can fix that a little bit. But I really like the way that they're looking right now. It's tough for me to say this, they're in the NL East. I'm a Philly guy, but I'm not going to be biased today. I'm liking the Nationals right now, and they're looking pretty good.
Yep, and then going from one great baseball team to another one, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim won 10 in a row until yesterday, with the best record in baseball and just coming off a 10-game winning streak. How big of a momentum boost is this for the Angels? And with Mike Trout at the helm, Are they clear-cut favorite to win it all? What makes them such a dangerous team, Mark?
You know, honestly, I'm going to, like I just mentioned, when you're on fire, you're on fire. I mean, okay, granted, they just lost their last game, but before that, they won 10 straight. Mike Trout is on fire. He's leading the majors in RBIs with 107. He's hit 34 home runs, I believe. Albert Pujols, he's back. He's revived. He's hit 26 home runs, 94 RBIs. So their hitting is great. Also, their pitching's on fire, too. Oh, man, Jared Weaver, 17 wins this year. Matt Schumacher, 15 wins this year. So these guys are definitely lighted up. I'm liking LA, and they're doing the thing out there.
Yeah, I got to agree with you again, Mark. You know, you start out so impressive to win 10 straight games. That's something, it's an eye-opener for the whole franchise and the whole league in general. I think it's a huge momentum boost, not only for the players, but for the entire organization and the franchise. Mike Trout has played phenomenal.
On fire.
And playing like the leader that's expected of him, I mean, there's not too many players in the league that can do what he does. With the best record in baseball, they are the clear-cut favorite, in my opinion. And with their depth in all the positions and a healthy starting lineup at that, too, you got to key in the injuries. You always have to make sure that you have healthy players on the field, and they seem to be able to keep their players healthy and able to go. So I think the Angels are playing phenomenal, though.
Well, you guys have mentioned a lot of really good baseball players, possibly MVP caliber. So, guys, who do you think is going to win the AL MVP?
I mean, hey, we were just talking about him all day. Bryce Harper. I like Bryce Harper. Like I mentioned, 34 home runs, 107 RBIs. I believe this is his second or third year in the majors. So he's on fire, and he's leading Anaheim to. Anaheim. He's leading the national. I'm all over today. He's leading the. What's that team name called again? The Angels. He's leading the Angels to a 93 wins right now, so they're looking good. I like him in the AL. And then the NL, Clayton Kershaw at pitcher. He was 19-3 for the NL. He's his ERA is 1.70 and his WHIP is 0.38. So I really like those two guys right there for my MVPs.
I really like Mike Trout, and I really understand why you would pick Bryce Harper. He's got a good all-around game. He has all the intangibles in order to be an MVP of the league. He's young. He's a stud. You got everything that you need in him. I mean, he's getting paid all them bucks, right? So I'm saying I feel like Mike Trout, though, also possesses everything that you need within a baseball player and to win the MVP for the AL.
So then, taking it over to NL, who are the favorites?
The NL's up there. I feel like you have core players over there. I think Kershaw is a great pick as well. I mean, I don't mean to agree with everything on Mark, but I feel like that's a great pick as well. I think what you have to really key into is the fact that it's the end stretch and the big players will come up in big times. So we'll see who actually steps up to the plate.
All right, well, thank you very much, guys. Up next, we're going to start talking about some NFL football, my favorite part of the segment. So stick around. We'll be back with In the Zone. Welcome back to your favorite sports show in Millersville, In the Zone. Once again, I'm Logan Kopp here with Andrew and Mark, and we're about to talk about some football, everyone's favorite sport. So first off, let's talk about the Redskins and RG3. So Robert Griffin III went down early in the Redskins game on Sunday with an apparent dislocated left ankle and could be out for a longer period of time. The next play, the backup quarterback Kirk Cousins came in and threw a touchdown. So, former Redskins quarterback Joe Theismann said earlier this year that Cousins is the better quarterback. Cousins finished the game with 250 yards and 2 TDs. Is this the chance Kirk Cousins needed? Or can he really be the best quarterback in Washington? Mark, what do you think?
You know, honestly, first I want to say it's tough to see RG3 go down again. He worked so hard, you know, coming off his previous injury. But yeah, I like Kirk Cousins. This is a league run by pocket passers. I believe the scrambling Michael Vick days are over. I mean, if you want to win and be successful in the NFL, you have to have pocket passers. I mean, look at your previous Super Bowl champions. You know, you have to be able to run out of the pocket, and Kirk Cousins is the answer out there in Washington. So yeah, I think it's time for Kirk Cousins to step in.
Yeah, I agree in somewhat. I feel like at this point in the whole scheme of things in the NFL, you really have to focus on the fact that everything is within a scheme. You have a certain offense you need to run, and you need to perform that offense as well as you can. And for every reason in the book, RG3 is just not the answer for that franchise. You have a person who came into the league out of Baylor and really focused on his mobility and was able to go around defenders. Defensive ends, they had no matchup against him because he was able to create more time on the outside and be able to run and throw. Now you're looking at an RG3 who's not as mobile and is not a pocket passer. So we have Kirk Cousins up at the plate now, and I feel like in every reason in the book, like I said, Kirk Cousins can lead this team into possibly a playoff run.
Very true. And as you guys said about the whole pocket passing being the go-to now with the league, as you saw, Johnny Football's on the bench, only played 2 plays in their game against New Orleans. And the New Orleans Saints actually lost the game on a game-winning field goal yesterday to the Cleveland Browns, starting the Saints off 0-2. This is the 5th game in a row that the Saints have lost on the road. What's it going to take for the New Orleans to step it up? Is it time to panic?
Yeah, I don't think it's too close to call right now. I feel like the Saints right now, they have a great franchise nonetheless. Regarding their losses, I feel like, that's still something that it's early in the season. They have a lot to go ahead and look forward to. You still have a franchise quarterback in Drew Brees, and you need to work on your defense a little bit more, keep the points down a little bit. But I can't really say anything negative about the organization or where they're going with it, because 5 losses can be made up with 5 wins right after that. So you never know what's actually going to happen. I think Drew Brees in himself is going to lead his team and is going to do everything that he can possibly to assure that his offense is able to move and be able to put points on the board and put yards up.
He's getting old, man.
Yeah, the Saints are good. I picked them to win their division, but they are definitely coming out struggling, losing their last 5 games on the road. If they could play in the Superdome all the time, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. But, yeah, I like Jimmy Graham and the combination of Drew Brees. So it's just they have some holes in the defense that they definitely need to be addressed, and I think they should be able to overcome it. I mean, it's only 2 games, so the coach will make some adjustments, Sean Payton will make some adjustments, and they'll go from there, honestly.
Yeah, if they can make those adjustments, then I can only see good things happening with the Saints. But like I said, Drew Brees is getting old, so we'll just have to see what happens. Going from one old quarterback to a very young quarterback here with the Seattle Seahawks, they actually also suffered a very stunning loss to the San Diego Chargers on the road. The offense torched the former #1 defense with Phillip Rivers passing for 284 yards and 3 touchdowns, all of which went to Antonio Gates. San Diego exploited the Legion of Boom and controlled the time of possession. What are the keys to beat the Seahawks? And will this be a recurring issue for Seattle? Mark, what do you think?
Honestly, what I like, last week I talked about Aaron Rodgers not attacking Richard Sherman. Phillip Rivers attacked Richard Sherman, and there's been some holes that people are now talking about Richard Sherman, maybe saying that he's not the best. So I really like that fact that he went after Richard Sherman in this defense. The problem with the Seattle's loss this week was that they weren't really blitzing. They fell back in the zone, and pocket passers can pick apart the zone, hence why Antonio Gates caught 3 touchdowns today. So they're not in trouble or anything yet. I mean, there's a blueprint to beating Seattle, and what's it called? San Diego showed you today.
I think you look at a quarterback like Phillip Rivers, and the first word that should come into your brain is aggressive, is a will to win. Phillip Rivers, no matter what the circumstances, has always proven that he's able to go ahead and step up to the plate. And Seattle does have a superior team, a Super Bowl winning team, but everybody's able to be beaten. So you never know what's going to happen in the NFL. There's always going to be a time that you're going to lose. Patrick Sherman, I mean, one game that he gets burned on a couple plays. That's absolutely nothing. He's still one of the best D-backs in the game, and I'm still really confident the Seahawks are the best team in the league.
That's a good point, but Seattle has the man curse on their hands with Richard Sherman. So the man curse hasn't actually ever been failed. So I guess we're going to have to see what happens.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So with staying in the AFC, there's a struggle in Kansas City. The Chiefs just hung in there against the high-powered Denver Broncos yesterday, and Kansas City lost Jamal Charles for much of the game with an ankle injury. Alex Smith has struggled so far this season. Does the Chiefs have what it takes to compete in a division with Denver? How good can Denver be this season? Andrew, what do you think?
See, the whole thing about Kansas City is just that, you lose a guy like Jamal Charles, and, that's a lot of your offense that's going to go ahead and not be able to, make up that time, make up that difference, make up the repetitions that they put in practice. So, you're going to have to go with the aerial attack a little bit more. You're going to have to put more time to go ahead and put it in practice that you need to work on your wide receiver and quarterback chemistry. The Denver Broncos, on the other hand, they're a great team. They've proven it. I mean, even though the Super Bowl loss last year, I feel like that was a fluke. That won't happen again this year. But I feel like, you got a guy in Peyton Manning, and you got the core wide receivers that surround him, all the lethal weapons that he possesses in his hand. And there's just no doubt in my mind that a guy like Peyton Manning is going to go ahead and take advantage of a Kansas City Jamal Charles-less, no running back able to move the football, get that extra first down for them.
I agree with you. Kansas City, I believe it was a fluke. I mean, and Jamal Charles is a huge, huge part of their offense. With Andy Reid, he's kind of using him similar to the way he used Brian Westbrook in the years past. So it's going to be a lot of load on his shoulders to carry. So that's going to be tough right now. And then Alex Smith, he's still coming into himself. Usually when those guys get those big contracts, they kind of fall off and, fall under the surface. So he's gotten paid. So we'll see if he can produce. And Peyton Manning, he's just being Peyton. They said he's come off a little slow this year because he hasn't thrown 7 touchdowns yet in a game. But he's sitting with 6. He threw 3 yesterday, 3 last week. He's looking good. Broncos are good. They're going back to the Super Bowl. So no worries in Denver, but Kansas City, they definitely need some work.
Well, the Broncos, Andrew, you mentioned how the Broncos, you think that was a fluke how they lost the Super Bowl, but I think it was just Peyton Manning not showing up when it was his time. There was that missnap in the beginning of the game, which ended up being a safety. So it seemed like Seattle basically had it that whole time. And if it's a fluke, then that means it can be easily adjusted. And I'm not going to doubt Peyton Manning. I think that he does have the skill set to eventually turn something around and give himself another Super Bowl win, giving him 2-2 in Super Bowl history. But I guess we'll just have to find out with Peyton Manning and with Wes Welker as well. There's the new drug policy that brought Wes Welker the chance to even come back sooner than expected. Mark, did you hear about this?
No, I actually didn't hear it, but hey, it'll help out my fantasy team. I'm struggling in the wide receivers, so Wes Welker, I hope he comes back and ready to go. And the combination with those two are definitely going to be a help with Knowshon Moreno down in Miami. So there were definitely going to be more plays called for Wes Welker, and they have that dynamic already. So I'm excited, and if it's cut down, I can't wait to see Wes Welker out there helping Peyton and also helping me.
Yeah, well, Wes Welker, with him being out, Emmanuel Sanders started to blow up, get more receptions. The third receiver came to second. And with fantasy, which we're going to be talking about next, Emmanuel Sanders is one of those players that you might want to look at a little more in depth. And he could still be a very positive threat for the Denver Broncos, even if Wes Welker comes back. But as I alluded to, up next we're going to be talking about fantasy football. So stick around, and we'll be right back with In the Zone. Welcome back to In the Zone. We're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, and that is fantasy football, where we get to pick real-life players and pretend like they're on our team. So we're going to be talking about studs and duds within fantasy, about stud as in they did really, really well, or a dud who should have been a big-time player and didn't really reach their expectations. So let's start with you, Andrew. Who is your stud of the week, or studs if you have multiple?
I'll tell you what, my stud of the week has got to be Kirk Cousins. I know that we discussed and we touched base on him a little bit previously, but I got to really stress the fact that Kirk Cousins came into a game where, you're not the starter. He knows that. The whole city knows it. The NFL knows it. And for him to be able to go into the game with a head full of confidence and a head full of swag that he has bringing into the game, I feel like that's something that's really something you could pinpoint. And I know he racked up a ton of points in fantasy football, but honestly, Kirk Cousins came through. He found his receivers. He was calm in the pocket, and he moved that offense. And I think a lot of people are really confident in Kirk Cousins. I feel like Kirk Cousins has always been a household name in the Redskins organization. He's kind of been waiting for his calling card almost. But, yeah, I got Kirk Cousins big time for my stud.
And what about you, Mark?
For my studs, I'm going to go, I like Alfred Morris. He did very well. You know, once RG3 went out, he was hammering the ball, finding the holes, scoring touchdowns, helping him out. So that was definitely a stud in my eyes. Also another stud, my guy, Jay Cutler. I love Jay Cutler.
Yes.
I talked about him last week, just hoping that he's able to work on his decision making. And yesterday he looked very good, throwing 3 touchdown passes to Brandon Marshall. I'm going to throw that in there too. Brandon Marshall, he was a stud as well. He did a little box out move where he caught himself a touchdown, you know, like he was going for a rebound on the court. He's a beast. I like Brandon Marshall. So I had 3 studs, and those guys were very good this week.
Yeah, and if you would even count in, if we had a defensive player, if you're in one of those leagues, if you started my man Kyle Fuller, who was the Bears' first-round draft pick, you would have saw that he had those 2 interceptions, crazy, and then the Brandon Marshall catch, which you're referring to. Well, actually, he had 3, so another one with the one where he just like palmed it one hand.
Forgot about that one.
Yeah. That was great.
That was a good one.
My stud of the week would have to be Sammy Watkins. I drafted him late in the my fantasy draft, and I decided to give him the okay. I gave him the nod today, and he came up big. He got his first career NFL touchdown, barely by an inch, but it was a great play by him. So then, Mark, what about duds? Who didn't really perform the way they should have?
I'm gonna talk about 2 people right now. My first dud is definitely Reggie Bush. He was so amazing for me last season, and I think yesterday he only gave me 3 points. It definitely hurt. Even though he's sharing the load with another running back over there in Detroit, it definitely hurt my team today. And also Vernon Davis, because Kaepernick, he was just blood awful, and Vernon Davis wasn't able to get much production with Kaepernick just being sporadic and all over the place. So I had a couple of duds last week, a lot of disappointments, honestly.
Yeah, just to go off of what you said about Reggie Bush, he's been a complete disappointment this whole season. I don't understand. You got a guy with all the athletic ability in the world, and he still can't.
It's been 2 games.
I don't know. It's something that, you know, it brings a question to the whole franchise. I'm sure that I don't think they're panicking just yet, but at the same time, you know, you always got to wonder why. For my dud, I got Jamar Charles, which is kind of a little messed up because he got hurt, but you know, you expect a lot out of the guy, and you want to be able to count on him every game that he's out on, every Sunday or Monday or Thursday. It's something that, you know, the franchise is always going to look over at Jamar Charles and expect him to be at every game at his best 100%. It's kind of a messed up dud, so let me throw another dud out there for you guys. I got Victor Cruz. I don't know if you guys had seen Victor Cruz this last game, but I'm over here doing my homework, and I'm over here doing my homework, and he's dropping about 5 balls every time I'm looking up at the television.
And demanding the ball.
Yeah, the chemistry's just not there. I don't know what's going on. You got Eli, you know, Payne needs to go ahead and teach him a couple things, I guess,
right.
You know. Older brother needs to teach younger brother a couple things, obviously, because, you know, the quarterback and wide receiver chemistry just isn't there. And it definitely showed in Victor Cruz's performance yesterday.
And also another dud from my team especially, Matt Forte.
Ooh, yeah.
He didn't produce the points that fantasy owners wish that he would have, but the Bears came out with a W. They didn't need to run it because they were playing catch-up that whole time, so I'm not mad. But so going on then, which player had the biggest surprise to you this past weekend? Player as in any position.
Well, I got to say, I know it's hard to pick a defensive player, but I think J.J. Watt definitely showed his presence on the field. He's always showing his presence on the field. He got that money now. He signed that big old contract, so he's ready to put it up all for grabs. J.J. Watt is my pick.
I agree. He even caught a touchdown. They lined him up at tight end. No one picked him up.
Very impressive.
Yep, and for me, I'd have to go Patriots defense with a nice, solid block that they had. All right, well, that's all we have for our show today. Thank you for watching In the Zone. For Andrew and Mark, I'm Logan Kopp. Thanks for watching, and good night.